Yeah. Mind, body, soul, check. 1, 2 is Joe Dash in the building. You know what the vibes is. And this evening, I am very fortunate to have this brother with me to give some game. And today we're going to talk about a bunch of things, especially the dynamics between men and women and how relationships actually work. Not the Hollywood thing that we've been sold and the dream we've been sold and all this stuff. This is a conversation aimed at men and women, why it doesn't work or why it does work. You know what I mean? So I'm very honored. Hugh, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming, King.
Honored, man. Honored, King. Blessed, blessed. Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Bruh, for people that don't know, I saw Hugh at the Queens. I work close with John, who runs the Queens Walk group, and she put on a Valentine's Day type thing where they're talking about relationships. And I saw this gentleman there, and he was talking about some things that I resonated with, that me and my guys resonate with, and I thought we could learn so much more. And growing in information is key as we progress through age, not just growing through age, but we're growing through emotional growth, mental growth, spiritual growth. Everything has to grow in line. So I'm just really grateful, man. I'm just grateful. So I've got you here so I can ask my question, because that day I had a bunch of questions. I was like, because you said something that was so mad, and I was just sitting there like, oh my days. I wish all my men would just hear watching, yeah. And you said something about
what was that? Now I'm fascinated. What was that?
You said something about sex. When the word sex comes up, everyone's ears seem to perk up. And you just said something that was so, to me, profoundly true. It wasn't discussed enough, which was, I would hear when I talk to my female counterparts that all you want is sex, all the man want is sex, and sex. And you said something that was so crucial, that when men get intimate, sex is a form of intimacy, is a language that we speak and what it means. Because when it's with your significant other, sex is not just, I'm just trying to have an orgasm. It means something deeper. And I've just never heard it articulated like that, because I know that, because the minute you said, I'm like, that's true. But I wouldn't have known how to bring that into a conversation to explain to people. Because when they say, oh, you want to sex, I'm just like, I know sex is important, but the only thing I've said to people that I don't think it's the same way that you're looking at it, where it's just a physical thing. I think it's deeper than that. I was like, because, but I didn't have the language you had, you know what I mean? So I want to start by just talking about some common misconceptions about men and in terms of our approach to things. What are some of the misconceptions? Because for people that don't know, I want you to tell them what you do for, like, what is your practice? Because you own your own practice. What do you do?
Okay, so I am a counselor, trained counselor and psychotherapist. Part of my private practice is that I see individuals, but a big part of my private practice is related to relationship counseling, relationship coaching. And there is a difference, because the counseling is something more about exploring the issues, whereas like the coaching is more like, they're looking for tips and pointers and kind of a quicker intervention. But counseling is when this thing is set in, this problem is set in kind of deep, and there's some unresolved stuff. So sometimes need to see the couples individually so they can open up and then bring them back together and then work through stuff. So there's slightly little nuance, slight little differences. And I do some other bits and pieces, like I said, I work with, we mentioned before, I do work with disaffected youth, men in particular, or young men, boys. I work on a kind of a mentoring program. There is no rites of passage in the Western world anymore. You know, West Africa got specific rites of passage. One day you're a boy, you go through certain rituals, processes, you come out a man, no longer a kid. They don't have this adolescent weird thing where you just you know what I mean? You're 29, you're 32, and you're still queuing up for the Jay-Z concert and buying the latest t-shirt. You're just not a man yet, but you're not really a child.
True.
In many cultures, they don't have that. But in the Western culture, they invented this whole adolescent thing that goes on and just keeps you spending money in a way, away from being serious and grounded, right? So we find that we had to kind of like design a mentoring program to kind of, instill these things, because many young inner city youth that possibly don't grow up with positive male role models, they're falling by the wayside, and we're getting into this, what they call it, pipeline to prison situation.
Yes, that's something.
I'm working on a program to kind of interrupt that pipeline, to mash up that pipeline, basically. Try and get them seeing some different expressions of masculinity. Away from gang and on the end, like away from that side. So bro. So there is exciting things that I do as well.
For me, I'm booking the man then. We're going to come as a group, we're going to come individually, because one of the things that really slowed down with me when I looked at counseling was like, I just didn't believe. And I hate making things about race, but I just didn't believe they understood when I would go to counseling and the white man's there. And he's great. And he was genuinely just actually very good at his job. I can never take that away. But I had this thing in the back of my head where it's like, do you truly understand when I'm telling you what the ends is, what growing up in the ends is like seeing your friend get stabbed at 13 years old, or do you, and he's not in my head, but I just wasn't convinced. So I'm grateful that there's more people like yourself out there and stuff like that, because sometimes you just want to feel like the person understands what it is to walk in your shoe. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
there is that element.
Absolutely.
What I want to talk, the first topic I want to kick into is, what is your view on this whole toxic masculinity thing? What does it mean?
Funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that, because I'm gonna do a quick cheeky plug. Yeah, I've got a podcast series, It Takes Two, Emotional Insight TV. My first episode was on narcissism.
Okay.
I explored it with a good friend of mine and a mindfulness coach, Leonora Bennett. We talk about narcissism. The reason I brought up, because those two words, narcissism and toxic masculinity, they have and toxic, everything is toxic now. They've become so overused, right? In my opinion, so overused that they've lost currency. You know, when something is a bit more exclusive and you pull it out, it's a diamond, or this is a gold, it's not common, so it's valuable, but it's worth. So, you know, when people used to say, for example, you know, this person's a narcissist, you know, back in the day, that was like a clinical that's what I understood as a clinical definition. Somebody's assessed them, it took a few weeks, a few meetings, right? And this person is a narcissist, he or she is a narcissist, right? You know how words enter the public domain, right?
Yeah.
So it enters the public domain. Although I'm talking about narcissism, but I think that toxic is, you know, quite
has its roots in that kind of concept.
It's kind of interrelated to the same conversation,
Got you.
And then now it's entered into public speak, or should I say, you know,
public space, right? Yeah.
But what I've noticed is it's kind of being gender orientated and weaponized. You don't really hear too many men saying that this woman was a narcissist, or this woman was toxic. Even we don't talk about toxic femininity.
Yeah, we don't. You
understand?
We really thought about it after they said toxic masculinity. Then we were like, well, there are some bad people then, because we didn't quite understand it when it first came into the environment. We didn't know, like you said, where some of these things could have its inception from. But men don't really talk about it. When I say you're a toxic woman, like, people don't say that. That's not our link from where we come from anyway.
The first time I heard that somebody used the term toxic femininity, I was working on an NHS project, one of the managers on an NHS project, and another manager, because there's a lot of women, it's a female-dominated environment. No disrespect, a female-dominated environment, and there's a certain way that women kind of build, rival, kick off, like men can, when we're amongst ourselves. But I guess we just have a different pecking order. We kind of we respect hierarchy kind of quick. We work out whether we like or not who's the alpha, who's the leader, it kind of. But women, their rivalry kind of is buzzing, is kicking off, and like, we was having this talk because we're two managers, so we're kind of having a debrief about some of the stuff that's going on with the staff, and she said, I said, you know, there's a lot of women in it, you know. And she's like, I said, is that toxic femininity? She goes, you know something, we don't really never talk about it, but that's exactly what it is, Hugh. That's exactly what it is. You know what I mean? So bring it back to the toxic masculinity.
Right.
I think that it's being genderized and weaponized against men, because it's a kind of left wing, this whole feminist thing, and we're kind of in this new era, right? Where it's kind of political era, and it spills out into society. So, you know, toxic masculinity really was written by this academic. I can't remember the lady's name, McRae, but I think she was born physically as a woman, but changed to, you know, like transitioned
into, okay.
But however, there's a brother in America. He is a serious academic, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. He talks about this. He kind of like breaks down this whole on his show where this term comes from, and it's actually was talking about toxic masculinity was really like, when we use the term sort of like white Western middle class men, or, you know, those who are in the levers of power in the Western world. That's what toxic masculinity was really about. It was about those in the global North and their the way they set up institutions and the way they operate. Men in the South, global South, so people of color, people from African descent, these societies, they were the opposite of toxic masculinity, because in terms of how our societies in, say, for example, Africa and different places, how men interact with women and the role they may play in family, and how the genders interact, seen as more modeling, more child rearing, more interaction with the children. It wasn't really applied to to people of color. But it's funny how it entered into as it comes into more popular speak now, it's something that I noticed in the Black community is getting targeted left, right, and center. About, you know, and it's the simplest thing of, you know, she broke up with her boyfriend. You know, he
Mm.
was toxic. He was toxic, and he was a narcissist. And I
Mm.
wrote an article on Medium about this and saying that
Mhm.
I believe that women in particular,
Mm.
are robbing themselves of an opportunity when relationships end, based when they use this type of language. Because,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example, if two people, it was
Mhm.
working, it was going somewhere, and then there's obviously people rub up against each other the wrong
Mm,
way.
the wrong way, yeah.
Deal, they get to a point in the road and they say, hey,
Yeah.
I'm going east, you going west,
West.
adios, right? This happens sometimes as
Oh,
part of
yeah,
life.
yeah. It's normal.
And that stuff, sometimes when you check for that person, that burn your skin, that hurts.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Big man will cry till all snot comes out his nose or
Mm.
bubble.
Yeah.
People, you hurt, right? But it's
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
the process. And you kind of like look inside yourself and say, after you do your victim bit about what she did and what she did, and she was say to
Yeah.
yourself, quiet corner of yourself, you know, sometimes to talk to her a bit of a way, or, you know, coming in late never really helped, or whatever it is, you review in your mind,
Mm.
or something. Those are some of those things I don't think I need to carry with me into my next relationship. I need to drop that because, you know, on a reflection, it wasn't helping me, and it's not gonna, you know, help me to bond with somebody and have
Yeah,
a
for
rich
sure.
future. But when, so I'm saying, when females say he was a narcissist, it's like some Hollywood movie, like this guy had
Yeah.
some sort of,
You're some psychopath.
but then you rob yourself of any reflection, because it means when you start labeling, that means everything bad in a relationship
Yeah.
was
Was
him,
them.
innit?
Yeah, it was them.
He's a narcissist. It speaks for itself.
So it's
So
like,
there's no,
oh, that's why it didn't work out, because he's a narcissist. Oh,
yeah.
I know him to be alone. It's like, but there's no reflection.
There's no self-reflection.
There's no self-reflection. You have to
Yeah.
reflect
So that's the
to
danger
find
of
the
that,
truth.
that you know, weaponizing that time, because it comes popular. It's just like butter off a hot knife.
So
You know,
yeah,
that term now.
it's become
Overused.
it's become now the colloquial term to describe men that are less than tasteful in that moment. If you're a man that does something that just distasteful, you're toxic straight away. But the dynamics of human relations means that we're just trying to find understanding constantly. And sometimes I may misunderstand you, might misunderstand me. And where there's ego involved, I guess that kind of always complicates things, because now, like you said, people just farm out the responsibility to the other person, that it's your fault, so I don't have to deal with whatever's bothering me and what you know what I'm saying. And it's just the easier way, because you know, I've always thought that maybe people feel ashamed when they have to look at themselves. Because I read a book about, I'm sure you know this guy, Joe Dispenza. Have you met? Yeah. So Joe Dispenza he has a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, so instead of SA, SA, it's a ZA, Joe Dispenza. So he's wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I'm a big fan of his because he talks about something, the gap theory, saying how people perceive themselves versus who they actually are. And our job is to close that gap as much as possible.
Okay.
But people stay right here. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with people. Like sometimes you tell people like, yo, do you know you do this? And they're like, no, I don't. Because they've never looked at it as, bro, you shout all the time unnecessarily. And the first thing they do is shout to tell you, no, they don't shout. You know what I'm saying? You shout sometimes, no, I don't, bro. And they go off and like, bro, I'm sorry that the ego and the identity you've taken on is not allowing you to see that, but this might be a thing of why she's feeling that way. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I realized Joe Dispenza really phenomenally explores that idea, and going into understanding that what we call the identity, or what we identify with, is more of your avatar than it is who you are. Like every thought doesn't belong to you kind of concept. So when I hear toxic masculinity or toxic femininity, are you saying like people are clinically diagnosing people because they don't want to self-reflect and deal with the reality? Is that really the whole scope of it?
I would say that I don't even know if it's like, it's not I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think what's dangerous is that it's unconscious. I think that the fact that the term has entered into popular speak, and it's kind of easy
to just
reach. Do you know what I mean? Because most of us as human beings, we can be victims, whether it's romantic relationships or family relationships, or everybody got a horror story. Everybody got most people, they got some long story. I grew up in England, but my elder siblings grew up in the Caribbean, or I was the one that came here. I'm the youngest. I was bullied. I'm the oldest. I didn't get to go uni. Somebody's always got some story, or I didn't get enough hugs, or whatever. We've all got our sob story. And some people, like, obviously they've been through genuine trauma and that, so I'm not making light of that. But just like in all relationships, I feel like in the romantic relationships, we give and we take and we get from. But I think that it's just like in a kind of unconscious way. I think that these ideas from outside of society, from think tanks or from these ideologues, they seep into popular speak through the medium, through social media, and then they come into our world. So people are aligning themselves with certain ideologies that they haven't like read and necessarily said, I've read this person's works and I feel like I want to come from this position. It's more like it just seeps into popular speak and they just start to come out with these ideas. And that's what I think. I don't think it's
a
that people
conditioning
directly doing it intentionally. I think it's drip into popular speak. The word toxic, the word narcissist, now it's fashionable, now it's flavor. It's been a few articles in Psychology Today and a few articles here and there, and then it's on everybody's lips.
Everyone's trying to define it.
Easy. And the reason why it becomes so appealing because it exonerates that person of self-reflection.
Of any responsibility.
Right? So there's nothing about my inability to open up, my inability, my little unhealed little girl inside that wasn't able to trust, and that impacted. How did that?
How the relationship went?
There's less of all those complicity. We call it.
Yeah.
It's kind of simple. He's a narcissist. What else? That's it.
He's toxic.
Yeah, he's toxic. He's a guy.
It sums up everything they feel, that word. That's why it's so dangerous. It seems to not add any context. It doesn't provide any clarity. It just says, when people say toxic, everyone feels, they assume that they know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, yeah, it was therefore, it almost comes like a herd thing. If you stand in a room of men and everyone's focusing on one man saying he's going through a breakup, like, bro, what happened? Bro, I just found it very toxic. But most of the room just kind of understands what he's talking about. Even though that understanding is not really rooted in anything factual, it's just like, oh, toxic. No one seems to question or ask someone like, what do you mean they were toxic? People kind of like toxic. Oh, okay, bro, sorry about that, bro. And it seems to be that.
Sorry to hear that, man. Sorry to hear
sorry.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. Sorry. Well, I think with the male version that we have is less clinically based, and we just say, although it's related to mental health, we just say, boy, she was mad, you know.
Yes, bro. She's mad.
Nuts.
We always like to label women crazy. Why is that? We always like, because I thought that when I used to say as a young man, I just feel like, because I didn't understand the reason for this. And who does that? And if my logic couldn't match the situation to make sense of it, then you must be crazy. Because a normal human being.
You said that word, logic. You said that word. Logic. Because I think if I be, all right, let's be frank. Let's just be frank.
Yeah.
My perspective is that women have the potential and often display the ability to be super analytical, right, and super intelligent, matching men, match for match, right, in the workplace, right, in academia. But take that same woman with all those gifts and put her with a man that she loves and she's got feelings for, and watch that logic evaporate and watch logic leave the building. when she phones him and his phone goes to voicemail or whatever, the pet peeves what people have in relationships or whatever.
The demons that come out.
Gone to see his ex, gone to see his children, but is his ex, what's going on? Is she in the room when you go to see your son, or where you guys sit? When that gets triggered, logic leaves the building. So then that's why I think that sometimes men, because we're still holding on to our logic, being analytical in and out of the workplace, we're kind of like, she's mad because we're not really appreciating how she's being triggered emotionally. Yes. That's the kind of like the miscommunication.
That's definitely that.
We're not speaking the same. So not that they're mad, they're emotional and like they're feeling. I feel insecure right now. I feel
because of things you're doing. So
I feel these different things.
Yeah.
So then the man's role is to more like make her feel secure. But sometimes we go off into our headspace.
That's the
So
problem.
speaking from our heart to her heart. Do you know what I mean?
Because it feels like constantly
we go into our headspace to say logically why it's not a problem, and we miss.
No, that's true. That's something that's very quite common, really, because you're making us conscious of some of these scenarios. And bruv, if you've been in a relationship, multiple relationships, you've at least experienced where because you did not understand the person, going off into your head and saying, well, this person's crazy, because why would you do that? Like, who sits down but it feels like we have to women need constant reassurance to some degree. But I find that when I talk to other men, they find it exhausting, because from when I talk to my circles or different circles of men, it's kind of like, I can't be telling you 10 times a day when I'm getting attacked left, right, and center from all forms of the world, where I don't even know how I feel right this moment. And you're telling me, abandon all of that just to feed to your need. And I realized that triggers men because it's like, not right now. Some men just lock off the phone, like, listen, not now. Because you're not even caring about my circumstances. You don't even know if I'm on the floor shot. You know what I mean? Or my favorite text that I know that annoys a lot of my friends that we get that text, you know, the fun is over, is we need to talk. That we need to talk is almost like when you was a kid and your mom calls you a certain way and you like run into your mind, what did I do? Did I leave the dishes? Did I tidy up? I did everything. You start going through all these mental things. Like if my woman sends me, we need to talk. Wherever I'm at, the fun is finished.